Chapter 301 Demonstrating. There are two types of water-type dimensional creatures commonly found in Pool City. Take note of the waves. If the angle of the waves is around 30 degrees, you have to be careful. They are epic electric eels. They have extremely powerful electric powers. Electricity easily conducts in water. The best way to deal with an electric eel is to stay out of the water. Having the ability to fly is the best. Otherwise, choose to jump onto a building. In short, make sure not to stay in the water unless you have the confidence of withstanding the electrocution at the epic stage with your body. If the waves are at 50 degrees, it's an epic sword fangfish. Their offensive strength is extremely high, but they have low intelligence. To epic experts, they are pretty much a bonus, Wang Fei patiently explained to Zhou Wen. She had already learned of Zhou Wen's actions in the Zuolu battlefield from Ouyang Lan. Although Ouyang Lan was very worried about the former principal, she still mentioned Zhou Wen several times and urged her to take good care of him. Wang Fei admitted that she didn't have the ability to teach a special genius like Zhou Wen, but teaching him some practical experience wasn't a problem. After all, Wang Fei had once been a soldier and participated in many battles. Dealing with the sword fangfish is very simple. As it's quite brainless, only having high offensive strength, you just have to dodge its attack and then stab it. As Wang Fei spoke, the razor-tooth fish flew forward, arriving in front of her with astounding speed. Wang Fei's figure flashed slightly before she drew her sword and slashed upwards. After crossing the sword fangfish, waves of blood splashed out from behind her. Soon, a thin, 2-meter-long strange fish floated with its white belly facing up. It was obviously dead. It was the first time Zhou Wen had seen Wang Fei in combat. Her technique was swift, accurate, and elegant. It exuded the feeling of being fully composed while striding between life and death. She was truly an expert amongst those at the epic stage. Wang Fei sheathed her sword and turned to Zhou Wen. However, if you do that, you have to wait until it's 1 meter away from you before dodging and attacking. You mustn't give it any time to react. If you lack the confidence to dodge at such close proximity, it's best you jump onto a wall and not face it directly in battle. Do you understand? Got it. Zhou Wen nodded in response. Wang Fei's experience was obtained from actual combat. Ordinary people had to earn these experiences with their lives. Now that Zhou Wen had Banana Fairy, ordinary epic creatures couldn't do anything to him. As long as he didn't have a death wish, there wasn't much danger in Pool City. Ms. Wang, where are you going? Zhou Wen asked Wang Fei, who was walking ahead. Although he had Banana Fairy, he didn't want to take too many risks. Don't worry. I'm just taking a stroll nearby. I heard that an electric eel was spotted here recently. I happen to want an electric eel companion beast, so I came to try my luck, said Wang Fei. Only then did Zhou Wen relax. As long as she didn't go to places like the poison worm pool, nothing would happen. Wang Fei led Zhou Wen onto the roof of the buildings, but her gaze remained fixed on the water beneath as she searched for traces of the electric eel. She didn't find the electric eel, but she found another sword fangfish. Wang Fei looked at Zhou Wen and asked, do you want to give it a try? I heard you already have the ability to kill epic creatures. There's no need. I'm not good at fighting in water. Zhou Wen shook his head. Although Wang Fei had already demonstrated the technique to slaying sword fangfish, Zhou Wen still felt that there was no need to gain experience by risking his life. After all, he could do the same safely in-game. Wang Fei didn't say anything when Zhou Wen declined the proposal. After all, she had heard about his escapades from Ouyang Lan. And Sheng had told her and he had heard it from Lu Yunxian, therefore, Wang Fei felt that there was likely some level of exaggeration. After all, Ouyang Lan thought highly of Zhou Wen to begin with. After the trip to the battlefield ruins, she thought even better of him. It was quite understandable that she had embellished it a little. It's right for you to choose not to try. Killing a sword fangfish requires experience too. Watch from the side and I'll demonstrate again. As Wang Fei said that, she jumped into the water but stood on the water surface without sinking. Apparently, she had quite good skills in alacrity. Sensing the fluctuations in the water's surface, the ripples in the water immediately rushed towards Wang Fei. It looked extremely fast and potent, making it seem as if something was a little off. Wang Fei frowned slightly as she seemed to notice something. Splash. As the water splashed, a 4-meter-long golden sword fangfish leapt up from the water, stabbing at Wang Fei like a sharp sword. On the golden sword fangfish's body, there was a golden glow. It's a mutated sword fangfish. Wang Fei's eyes focused as she drew her sword and slashed out a beam at the mutated sword fangfish. Clang. When the sword flashes clashed, several sword flashes appeared on the golden sword fangfish's body. They split like gears, grinding Wang Fei's sword beams to pieces. Wang Fei tapped the surface of the water with her toe and dodged the sword fangfish's attack before engaging in battle with it. Zhou Wen watched from the side and realized that the golden sword fangfish was much stronger than the average sword fangfish. Its sword flashes were able to grind all sorts of primordial energy skills to pieces. Despite Wang Fei's sword techniques being highly ingenious, her sword flashes would shatter upon contact with the sword fangfish's body. She couldn't injure it in any way. However, Wang Fei's movement techniques were lithe and swift. Although the sword fangfish's sword flashes were fast, they couldn't injure her. The situation was in a stalemate. After watching for a while, Zhou Wen roughly knew the weakness of the golden sword fangfish. Although Wang Fei wasn't weaker than it and had very high-quality companion beasts, she didn't have the ability to overwhelm the golden sword fangfish. However, Wang Fei's standard was clearly much better than the golden sword fangfish. She was definitely able to slay it given enough time. Seeing that she couldn't finish the battle anytime soon, Zhou Wen sat on the rooftop and took out his phone. As he gamed, he waited for Wang Fei to kill the golden sword fangfish. When Wang Fei noticed that Zhou Wen was sitting there playing games, it was a miracle that she wasn't angered to death by him. All she could do was vent her anger on the golden sword fangfish. However, it was quite a handful, something she couldn't finish instantly. Just as Wang Fei was feeling depressed, she suddenly saw a wave of water appear in the street a distance away. The angle of the wave was extremely small, and it was like an arrow that was approaching her. Electric eel. Wang Fei was immediately alarmed. She still had the energy to deal with a golden sword fangfish, but adding on an electric eel made it a challenge. Article 302 of 1597. Chapter 322 Mutated Creatures. However, on second thought, Wang Fei felt that it was also a good opportunity to educate Zhou Wen. She wanted him to learn how to fight in a disadvantaged situation and how to eventually win despite being outnumbered 2-1. Zhou Wen also saw the new wave. Based on the knowledge taught by Wang Fei, he recognized it as the electric eel and hurriedly got up to help. However, he heard Wang Fei say loudly, during actual combat in dimensional zones, we often encounter situations that can put us at a great disadvantage. This is especially so when we are attacked by a group of dimensional creatures. Learning how to deal with such a disadvantageous situation is very important when you explore dimensional zones in the future. Watch well. I'll now demonstrate to you how positioning and kiting can be used to deal with 2 or more dimensional creatures. Hearing what Wang Fei said, Zhou Wen sat down again. He didn't game, but stared at the battle which Wang Fei was engaging in. Child, let me, your tutor, blow you away with my performance. Wang Fei took a deep breath inwardly and tapped the water surface with her toe. Like a graceful fairy, she dodged the sword fangfish's sword flash and slashed at the electric eel that was rushing towards her. The electric eel leapt up from the water and revealed itself to be a 5-meter-long eel. Its body shimmered with silver light as though silver electric bolts were dancing on its scales. Wang Fei's heart skipped a beat when she saw this. Normal electric eels were blue in color, but this electric eel was silver. Furthermore, the electric bolts were also a strange silver color, not the common blue. It was obviously a mutated creature. What's going on? Wang Fei felt something amiss. It wasn't easy to find a mutated dimensional creature, but now there were 2 of them. It was way too odd. The key point was that Wang Fei had never encountered mutated electric eels before. She didn't know much about them either. She had no idea if she could simultaneously deal with 2 epic mutated creatures. Boom. The silver lightning on the mutated electric eel blasted out and clashed with Wang Fei's sword flash. The sword flash instantly shattered as she saw silver bolts of lightning smite down from the sky. Zhou Wen watched as Wang Fei engaged in a battle with the 2 mutated creatures. He watched as she moved like a fairy, constantly dodging and ducking above the water surface every instant in a harrowing manner. He couldn't help but marvel inwardly. As expected of a tutor. She's indeed extraordinary. These kinds of movement techniques are already better than my Dragon Gate fairy skill. It looks like I still need to work harder. Zhou Wen had never seen the electric eel before, nor did he know that it was a mutated electric eel. He thought that Wang Fei was deliberately showing him her movement techniques and ingenious positioning. Wang Fei was in a dilemma, unable to voice her suffering. The mutated electric eel was much harder to deal with than she had imagined. The silver electric bolts were extraordinary and could spread across large areas in the water. Coupled with its incredible speed, she was unable to catch up to the mutated electric eel. She could not kill one, nor catch up to the other. Although Wang Fei was capable, she was unable to use her abilities to their fullest. All she could do was dodge the attacks of large swaths of lightning and sword flashes without being given any chance of retaliation. Having had the intention of retreating temporarily, she recalled the words she had said to Zhou Wen. It was too embarrassing to retreat now. Wang Fei originally wanted to rely on her own abilities to find a way to kill 2 mutated creatures, but she soon realized that it was almost impossible. The mutated sword fangfish's sword flashes could be torn apart through repeated attacks, but the mutated electric eel had an escape technique with dual water electric traits. With the 2 combined, along with the environment of Pool City, it only took an instant to travel nearly 1,000 meters. Wang Fei had no way to keep up with its speed. She wanted to set up an array of sword flashes to stop the electric eel, but the mutated sword fangfish would rip apart whatever she set up. It couldn't be turned into something effective. Instead, the mutated electric eel's attack caused a lot of trouble for Wang Fei. Electric bolts flashed in the water, making it impossible for her to touch it. Lightning also struck down from the sky, making it difficult for her to dodge. If she was on land, she could still summon a companion beast to help, but now, other than flying companion beasts, the other companion beasts would be electrocuted the moment they entered the water. It was useless to summon them. For a moment, Wang Fei was in an extremely awkward situation. She was at a loss of whether to fight or retreat. This dilemma troubled her. Although Zhou Wen didn't quite understand Wang Fei's complicated feelings, his talent in combat was still quite good. He quickly noticed that her situation wasn't looking good. It could no longer be described as a disadvantageous situation. If this continued, Wang Fei's life would be in danger. Without having second thoughts, he summoned the banana fan and timed it just as the mutated sword fangfish leapt out of the water before fanning it. Wang Fei was just about to dodge when she saw the mutated sword fangfish charging at her with sword flashes that resembled glowing wheels when a strong gust of wind suddenly swept over. The water's surface stirred up a wave several meters high. If it wasn't because all the water had been used, the waves might have been higher. The wind swept the water wave onto the mutated sword fangfish's body, instantly sending it flying. It flew into the sky along with some of the water like a column that reached to the heavens. What was even more amazing was that the water column had frozen into ice, freezing in midair. Even the mutated sword fangfish was frozen in the water column. It was a very strange sight. Wang Fei was slightly taken aback as she turned to look in the direction where the cold wind came from. She saw Zhou Wen standing at the top with a green fan in his hand. When she looked over, Zhou Wen had just put the fan to his chest, looking somewhat refined. Zhou Wen really has the ability to kill epic creatures. Isn't this the power of this fanning way too ridiculous? Even among epic creatures, there aren't many who can use such a level of attack. Wang Fei's expression looked confused. However, Wang Fei was one who had been through a lot. After being startled for a moment, she immediately snapped out of her daze and dodged the mutated electric eel's attack. Without the mutated sword fangfish holding her back, Wang Fei felt much more relaxed dealing with the mutated electric eel. Zhou Wen didn't offer any more help, but Wang Fei had already lost the mood to demonstrate to him. All she wanted was to quickly finish this mutated electric eel. It wasn't that Zhou Wen didn't want to help, but the usage of Grand Yin Wind had already expended all his primordial energy. He needed some rest to use it a second time. However, even if it was used a second time, it would probably be useless. The mutated electric eel's dual water-electric escape technique was too fast. The Grand Yin Wind might not be able to catch up with it. Wang Fei vented all her frustration on the mutated electric eel as she slashed out one sword flash after another, forming afterimages in the air. Soon, Zhou Wen discovered that the afterimages were not real afterimages but remnant sword flashes in the air. The sword flashes had failed to stay in place due to the mutated sword fangfish's sword flashes destroying them, but now that there was no mutated sword fangfish left, the sword flashes formed a sword net in the air. When the electric eel slammed into it, it ended up being covered in blood. Despite finishing off the mutated sword fangfish, Wang Fei just didn't feel happy about it. Article 303 of 1597. Ms. Wang, your movement, technique and swordplay are truly exquisite. Can I learn from you? Zhou Wen asked Wang Fei sincerely. Wang Fei frowned at Zhou Wen, unsure if he was mocking her. Although Zhou Wen's EQ wasn't high, he could tell that there was something wrong with the way she was looking at him. He hurriedly explained, I mainly focus on movement techniques, but I'm so inferior to you. I wonder if you can tell me the name of the movement technique you used, or which dimensional creatures drop it. Wang Fei didn't know whether to laugh or cry when she saw how sincere Zhou Wen was, a clear act that he wasn't being sarcastic. She had thought of so many methods in the past, hoping that Zhou Wen would learn from her, but to no avail. To her surprise, Zhou Wen ended up wanting to learn from her because of the embarrassing circumstance. This movement technique is unique to my family, so it's hard for outsiders to learn it. When Wang Fei learned that Zhou Wen wanted to learn it from her, she was thrown into a difficult position. This movement technique was a secret technique of the Wang family. It required the combination of 3 different movement technique type primordial energy skills to acquire mastery. Furthermore, the 3 primordial energy skill crystals were proprietary to the Wang family's dimensional zones. Outsiders could not obtain them. I see. Then I'll look at other movement techniques. Zhou Wen was slightly disappointed. Wang Fei's movement technique was indeed better than his Dragon Gate Fairy technique, and it was more practical. However, since it was the Wang family's secret technique, Zhou Wen had to give up. Seeing Zhou Wen's disappointed expression, Wang Fei had mixed feelings. She previously wanted Zhou Wen to study under her, but now that he wanted to do so, she couldn't teach him. You're my student and also Uncle Mingyuon's disciple. You can't be considered an outsider. How about this? I'll go back and discuss it with my family elders. Perhaps there's a chance, Wang Fei said after some thought. She really didn't wish to miss an opportunity to teach Zhou Wen. Thank you, Ms. Wang. If it's too troublesome, forget it. Zhou Wen didn't really want to trouble Wang Fei. We'll talk about it when the time comes. I may not succeed. Wang Fei didn't say much because she really wasn't sure if she would succeed. If it weren't for the fact that the person who wanted to learn it was Zhou Wen, Wang Fei wouldn't even attempt to win him an opportunity. After hoisting up the mutated sword fangfish and mutated electric eel, she discovered that they each had a companion egg inside their bodies. 2 companion eggs had dropped at once. This is yours. Wang Fei handed Zhou Wen the mutated sword fangfish's companion egg and put away the mutated electric eel companion egg. Zhou Wen didn't stand on ceremony when he considered how he had indeed put in the effort. He put away the mutated sword fangfish companion egg and planned to hatch it when he returned. It might come in handy later when he went to slay the poison worm at Poison Worm Pool. In Bright Prospects College's canteen, a man with short black hair was quietly eating his meal. A girl walked over and sat opposite him, speaking to him excitedly. Ming Xiao, I got accepted to be an exchange student at Sunset College. I can head over to Sunset College with you. Is it worth being so happy to go to Sunset College? The boy looked up at the girl, confused. Of course, it's something worth celebrating. It's Sunset College. The best school in Luang. It's not even just Luang, there are many outstanding geniuses in the entire league who wish to study at Sunset College. Being able to attend school there is the dream of many students, right? Saying that, the girl blinked and said, of course, I'm so happy not because I can study at Sunset College, but it's that I can go to Sunset College with you. I want to see you defeat the high and mighty geniuses there. I want to let them know who the strongest genius is. There are many geniuses, but I've never been a genius, said Ming Xiao indifferently. I know, you relied on your own hard work, but it's undeniable that you're a true genius and the strongest genius in Bright Prospects College's history. If your father weren't the chancellor of Bright Prospects College, you wouldn't have attended this school. Famous schools like Sunset and Covenant colleges are where you should have gone. You are not inferior to any of those students. You are even more outstanding. The girl looked at Ming Xiao, speaking with agitation. Outstanding. Ming Xiao shook his head slightly and reached out to stroke the girl's head. Compared to going to Sunset College, I prefer eating the lunch boxes you prepare for me in the sun. Got it, got it. You've said it many times. Wasn't I training hard recently to get a spot to go to Sunset College with you? I obviously didn't have the time to make lunch boxes for you. Now that I've already obtained the qualification, I'll make it for lunch tomorrow. You greedy cat, the girl said in exasperation. At the same time, Sunset College was also discussing the exchange students between Bright Prospects College and Sunset College. The two colleges had a deep relationship, so there would be certain spots reserved for students from Bright Prospects College to study for one semester, which lasted 3 months. Although it was an exchange, it was to let them learn advanced knowledge and theory. The teachers from Sunset College would send their students to tutor them on a one-on-one basis. These are the nominations for the student tutors this year. Look and see if you have any objections, the vice-chancellor said as he pointed to the documents in front of the teachers. Wang Fei picked up the name list and looked at it. She asked in surprise, why is Zhou Wen's name on it? Aren't the student tutors always third years and above? Zhou Wen is just a freshman. He shouldn't need to do this, right? The managing vice-chancellor smiled and said, Zhou Wen is in the top 10 of our school's comprehensive test and he once defeated John and won honor for our school. If he doesn't qualify, few of our students qualify. Wang Fei didn't want Zhou Wen to waste his time and energy on being a student tutor. She wanted to change the vice-chancellor's mind, but before she could say anything, the vice-chancellor waved his hand and said, this matter is decided. There is no room for discussion. Seeing how determined the chancellor was, Wang Fei had no choice but to swallow her words. After the meeting, before Wang Fei went to look for the managing vice-chancellor, he asked her to stay behind. Madam personally called to request this, the managing vice-chancellor said to Wang Fei. Sis Lan. Wang Fei was slightly taken aback. However, since it was Ouyang Lan's request, she had nothing to say. She was only Zhou Wen's teacher, but Ouyang Lan was, in name, his mother. Wang Fei picked up the name list again and glanced at the person Zhou Wen would be tutoring. On it were 2 words, Ming Xiao. Ming Xiao, could it be the one from the Ming family? What is Sis Lan trying to do? Wang Fei looked at the name with an uncertain expression. Article 304 of 1597. In the underground Pool City Instance Dungeon, Zhou Wen controlled the blood-colored avatar and ran towards Poison Worm Pool. There were few dimensional creatures in Pool City, so he only encountered 2 sword fangfish along the way. However, they were only ordinary ones that he easily slew. Using the characteristics of the Overlord Spears ever victorious, he was able to dish out death with 1 strike, but nothing dropped. The Poison Worm Pool was originally a lake built in the city. After the city was flooded, the pool wasn't fully submerged due to its higher height. The square and stone columns by the side remained above the water surface. With the blood-colored avatar standing in front of the stone column, Zhou Wen looked down and couldn't help but frown. The water in the Poison Worm Pool was black. Even if he jumped in, there was a chance that he wouldn't be able to see anything. He first summoned an ordinary golden warrior, letting it enter the Poison Worm Pool to test things out. He wanted to see if he could lure the poison worm out. The golden warrior fell into the water and sank with a bloop. After a while, there was no reaction from the pool. However, the game indicated that the golden warrior had died. The poison worm didn't appear. Zhou Wen summoned a few more companion beasts and sent them into the water, but the results were all the same. They caused quite a commotion when they sank, but they soon fell silent. However, the poison worm just didn't appear. With no other choice, Zhou Wen let Ghost Bride give it a try. She had a ghostly body and wasn't affected by the poisonous liquid. She floated straight into the lake. Although Ghost Bride was unaffected, she couldn't see anything in the pitch-black pool and didn't know how deep the pool went. Despite diving several hundred meters, Ghost Bride still failed to reach the bottom, nor did she find the poison worm. Ghost Bride kept diving for nearly 1,000 meters before she finally reached the bottom. The bottom wasn't very spacious, and she didn't encounter the poison worm after circling the area. Strange, where did the poison worm go? Has it not spawned? Zhou Wen was puzzled. This was a game, and Zhou Wen was the only gamer. That made it quite impossible for there to be spawning problems. Zhou Wen made Ghost Bride make another circle of the area but ultimately didn't discover anything. Strange. Zhou Wen had no choice but to go to the school's database. There was quite a lot of information regarding the poison worm. After all, it was a dragon-like existence. Many tutors had attempted to obtain a poison worm companion beast. However, there were very few people who could kill it. The poison worm was also known as a diving worm. It remained within the poison worm pool and wouldn't easily be tempted by external objects. As for the poison worm pool, it was extremely toxic. Not only humans but even some of the venomous companion beasts also found it difficult to survive in it. A tutor had specifically written a guide to lure the poison worm out. The most important point mentioned was that although the poison worm was an aquatic creature, it enjoyed eating birds, especially bird eggs. As long as one applied some beaten eggs to the stone railings, one could lure the poison worm out. If one couldn't find any bird eggs, chicken eggs could be used too. However, the amount of chicken eggs required was around 4 kilograms. Drawing out the poison worm was only the first step. This was because an ordinary epic expert would not be able to withstand the toxicity of the poison worm. If they were to be sprayed with poisonous gas, they would most likely die on the spot. Are there bird eggs in the game? I don't have any bird eggs, but I have one stone egg. I wonder how long it will take before Truth Listener evolves. Zhou Wen was somewhat depressed. Only objects like companion eggs could be brought from real life into the game. Ordinary objects couldn't enter. If I were to go to the poison worm pool in reality, I could take the chick over and tie it up as bait. But in this game, where can I find birds and eggs? As Zhou Wen was thinking about how to get eggs, he heard a commotion outside. Originally, he didn't want to pay attention to what was happening outside, but when he heard Li Xuan call his name, he opened the door. He immediately saw Li Xuan standing outside the courtyard with many people surrounding him. Most of them were special admission students that lived in the Four Seasons Garden. Even Wang Lu was amongst them. They surrounded Li Xuan and said something while Li Xuan had a smug look on his face. Beside him was a beautiful companion beast in a leafed robe with a wooden bow in hand. It had pointy ears and a pair of wings growing on its back. Zhou Wen, what do you think of my newly acquired elf companion beast? It's an authentic elf archer from the West District's Life Forest. Although it's only at the legendary stage, it's much more expensive than the typical epic. Furthermore, due to their rarity, it's not something that can be bought with just money, Li Xuan flaunted. The special admission students by his side had looks of envy as though they agreed with Li Xuan's words. What special abilities does she have? Zhou Wen felt that ordinary legendary companion beasts were useless to him unless they had special abilities. Such a pet doesn't need any ability. It just needs to stay by my side, Li Xuan said. Many students beside him nodded in agreement, feeling that Li Xuan was right. If there's nothing else, I'll go back and play games. Zhou Wen didn't see the point of having such a companion beast tag along. Li Xuan hurriedly followed Zhou Wen into the building. Old Zhou, this item is just a decoration. It's indeed useless. However, a batch of excellent grade companion eggs has recently been sent to Luong. This elf archer is just one of them. Someone gave it to me as a gift. They invited my Li family to participate in the companion egg auction. Are you interested in joining me? I don't have money anyway. What can I do if I go? I'll just play games at home, Zhou Wen said with a shake of his head. Come on man. Join me. Just treat it as broadening your knowledge. After all, it's rare seeing companion eggs from the West District. I heard there are dragons, angels, devils, and some other elemental companion beasts. Li Xuan added. I'm not going, Zhou Wen rejected. Don't be so heartless. At most, I'll pay you to attend. Li Xuan knew that Zhou Wen lacked money, so he tempted him. However, that was in the past when Zhou Wen lacked money. He had invested enough money now, so his need wasn't that high. Why must you drag me along? Zhou Wen asked. Li Xuan chuckled in embarrassment. The last time I bought the Thunder God General was when you were with me. You helped me make up my mind, resulting in my good luck. I will definitely get a few more companion beasts this time, so if you join me, I'll feel a lot more at ease. Do you think I'm some kind of lucky mascot? I don't have that ability. If you really want to get lucky, why don't you invite Wang Lu along? Zhou Wen rolled his eyes at him. Upon hearing Wang Le's name, Li Xuan said depressingly, Wang Lu will participate too, but she is buying a companion egg for herself. We will be competitors. Come with me. I won't let you do it for free. If any companion beast catches your fancy, I'll buy it for you as payment as long as it's not too expensive. Article 305 of 1597. Zhou Wen didn't accept the payment, but he still agreed to participate in the auction with Li Xuan. The venue of the companion egg auction happened to be at the Ziyuan Crystal Shop. Qin Ziyuan's shop. When Zhou Wen recalled the store, he immediately thought of the mysterious numbers and the locked companion beast. He thought that he could get the answer after saving the former principal, but to his dismay, he failed to find the former principal in the ruins. The Yin family had sent many experts into the temple to search, and Sheng would occasionally inform him of the progress. The latest update from Insheng was that there seemed to be a problem with the temple. According to the analysis of an expert in ancient architecture, following the layout of the temple, they should have only arrived at the outer sanctum of the temple and there should be an inner sanctum further in. The former principal was probably trapped inside the inner sanctum. However, they had yet to find a way to enter the inner sanctum. The research was still ongoing. Zhou Wen also wanted to enter the temple in-game. Unfortunately, he couldn't pass the underground sea, so he couldn't reach the temple. I should focus on advancing to the epic stage first. Zhou Wen couldn't find any bird eggs in-game, not even chicken eggs. He had no choice but to think of other solutions. In the patch of reeds outside Pool City, there were some low-level avian dimensional creatures. Zhou Wen grabbed a few of them and hung them above the poison worm pool stone railing and drained their blood. This actually worked. It didn't take long before bubbles popped out of the poison worm pool. The few avian dimensional creatures trembled in extreme fear. Splash. The surface of the water suddenly exploded. A dimensional creature that looked a little like a snake or dragon extended half of its body from the toxic pool. It opened its mouth and sucked at the bleeding birds, sucking them into its mouth. It didn't appear like a snake since it had claws, but it was not a dragon since it lacked horns. It looked very strange. Zhou Wen wasn't in the mood to appreciate its appearance. He made Banana Fairy blow a gust of cold, raging grand yin wind at the poison worm, sweeping it up along with large amounts of poison water before it was frozen in midair. Bam! Frozen in a block of ice, the poison worm landed on the square. Any ordinary epic creature would have been frozen to death, but the poison worm didn't die. Thankfully, the freeze remained in effect as it lay motionless when it fell to the ground. Zhou Wen held the Overlord spear and thrust out several times, stabbing the poison worm to death. It's not as powerful as the rumors say. Zhou Wen felt that those strategies were a little exaggerated. Killing a poison worm was quite easy. However, it had eluded him that few people in the world possessed the mythical Banana Fairy. Without her, how could he have so easily killed a poison worm? Ding! The poison worm's body exploded as a crystal dropped. Zhou Wen took a look and saw that it was a crystal with a poison worm's figure inside. It was obviously a skill crystal. My luck is in here. Zhou Wen was overjoyed as he hurriedly got the blood-colored avatar to pick up the crystal. Poison worm crystal requires 21 strength and 14 poison stats to absorb. The system gave him a notification, and it was something that Zhou Wen's stats matched perfectly. He even had a slightly higher poison stat, hence, he directly chose to absorb it. The poison worm crystal transformed into wisps of black gas and fused into the blood-colored avatar's body. At the same time, Zhou Wen felt a numbing pain aura circulate in his body as he cried out in pain. After a while, the feeling gradually disappeared as a new primordial energy circulation formed in his body. Absorbed poison worm crystal. Attained epic primordial energy skill, poison dragon finger. It's not the dragon transformation art. Zhou Wen felt depressed. It wasn't what he needed. He hadn't heard of the poison dragon finger before, and on second look, he realized it was just rank 1. Zhou Wen tested the poison dragon finger, and when he used it, his left middle finger turned black. Other than that, there didn't seem to be any other changes. There weren't any strong finger beams or explosive powers. It looked ordinary and unremarkable. It was unbelievable that it was an epic primordial energy skill. Isn't this too weak? Do I even have to touch my opponent with my finger? It's already an epic primordial energy skill, yet it's still so low-end. Zhou Wen pointed at the stone column and discovered that not only was it ordinary, nothing about its effect stood out. The augmentation in strength was very lacking, making it not much stronger than the mortal stage golden finger. It really didn't live up to its status as an epic skill. Since the poison dragon finger has the word poison, it likely clinches victory using poison, right? I'll try testing it on a living creature later. Zhou Wen had no choice but to console himself and leave the underground Pool City dungeon before switching to the Zuolu battlefield. Not long after, he encountered a Kai. This time, Zhou Wen specifically used the poison dragon finger to deal with it. However, when he tapped at the Kai, it wasn't damaged at all. He only left a black dot the size of a fingertip on its body. Zhou Wen originally hoped for the black dot to show its special effects such as directly rotting it and poisoning the Kai to death, so he kept staring at the chiz black dot. However, not long after, the black dot disappeared. With it disappearing without a trace, the Kai remained brimming with energy as though it was completely fine. I actually believed this nonsense. Zhou Wen was rendered completely speechless. To call this primordial energy skill an epic was an insult to the word epic. Without a solution, Zhou Wen first tried his luck at the baby tiger and once again tried the underground sea. After successfully killing himself, he headed for the underground Pool City to grind the poison worm. He refused to stop until he obtained the dragon transformation art. Now experienced, it was easier for him to lure the poison worm out and kill it. There were no absolutely invincible dimensional creatures in this world. Even a companion beast like Banana Fairy with a mythical foundation could be resolved as long as he knew her characteristics. The principle of mutual promotion and restraint was very useful in battles between companion beasts and dimensional creatures. It was unknown if Zhou Wen's luck had really changed for the better recently. After killing the poison worm once again, he had another primordial energy skill crystal drop. It left him in disbelief. May the heavens bless me. It should be the dragon transformation art this time, right? Zhou Wen hurriedly got the blood-colored avatar to pick up the poison worm crystal. The absorption conditions were the same as before, strength and poison stat requirements. After the blood-colored avatar absorbed the poison worm crystal, the system gave another notification. Absorbed poison worm crystal. Attained poison dragon finger 2. Damn, there's a sequel. Zhou Wen felt like he was about to explode. He actually had 2 weak primordial energy skills drop in consecutive fashion. He didn't know if he was lucky or unlucky. At this point, Zhou Wen didn't have a solution. He killed the baby tiger with nothing to speak of before diving into the underground sea to steal the dragon pearl. After succeeding in dying, he returned to kill the poison worm. Ding! A crisp sound rang out as another primordial energy skill crystal dropped. Article 306 of 1597. Absorbed poison worm crystal. Attained poison dragon finger 4. Zhou Wen felt a little uncomfortable when he saw the game notification pop out. The poison worm was simply exasperating, it just kept dropping poison dragon finger. What the hell is this? Zhou Wen had no choice but to treat the poison dragon finger seriously. To have the poison dragon finger primordial energy skill drop 3 times in a row, Zhou Wen didn't think it was a mere coincidence. After studying the skill carefully, he realized that the poison dragon fingers 1, 2, 4 weren't the same. They were 3 separate skills. Zhou Wen believed that the first unlabeled poison dragon finger was 1. When he used it, the middle finger on his left hand turned black, using 2 and 4 turned his index finger and ring finger black. Could it be that there are 5 types of poison dragon finger that correspond to each of the 5 fingers? However, the effects of the poison dragon fingers are so weak. Even if they're used at the same time, it wouldn't be of much use, right? Zhou Wen was rather intrigued. He wanted to know the might of the poison dragon finger when he gathered all 5. After all, the poison dragon finger in its present state didn't live up to being an epic skill. Zhou Wen now felt that the poison dragon finger wasn't that simple. He checked the poison worm's information on the school's database mainly to see what it could drop. There was little information on such matters. Only the tutor who had previously written the method to lure the poison worm had mentioned that poison dragon finger would drop. However, he claimed that it was very weak and weaker than the typical legendary skill. It wasn't worth practicing. Zhou Wen didn't manage to find any information on the dragon transformation art, so he could only continue grinding. However, after killing the poison worm 3 times, he only had a strength crystal drop. No other skill dropped, much less a companion egg. It's so difficult to have the dragon transformation art drop. I wonder who's managed to have it drop in the past. Zhou Wen had no choice but to patiently grind the instance dungeons. The bat cave dropped the most items, but few of them were useful. The best was naturally the white shadow of poison companion egg. Unfortunately, Zhou Wen only had 1 drop. The ones he subsequently killed didn't produce any companion eggs. Next were the primordial energy skill crystals, followed by the poison crystals. In addition, the bat cave had another special use: help Zhou Wen hatch epic companion eggs. Due to Zhou Wen's lack of primordial energy, he wasn't able to hatch epic companion eggs. But thanks to the large number of bats, killing them all dropped at least 7 primordial energy crystals each time he cleared the bat cave. These were valued between 21 and 36. With the help of these high-valued primordial energy crystals and the primordial energy recovery of his Dao body, Zhou Wen could barely hatch an epic companion egg. Zhou Wen had used this method to hatch the mutated stone kai. Now, the mutated stone kai had transformed into a grayish-white stone armor that the blood-colored avatar wore. The armor was unique. It was a full-body armor. The grayish-white stone covered the blood-colored avatar from head to toe. It was different from the crudeness that Zhou Wen imagined. The mutated stone kai in its armor form was exquisite and refined. It was on par with exquisitely forged steel armor. It even had quite an artistic feel to it. After the blood-colored avatar put on the stone armor, it looked like a stone statue. However, its face was covered with a ferocious beast helm. It looked extremely ferocious and ruthless. On the back of the armor, there was a black dragon pattern. The dragon appeared more abstract, preventing anyone from seeing its full appearance. However, the dragon's domineering aura seemed to leap out of the armor as though it would come to life at any moment. Rule. After testing the defense of the stone chiz armor, it wasn't only strong, the armor had powerful self-healing abilities. It could instantly repair itself if it was not completely destroyed. The poisonous rays from ordinary epic poisonous bats were unable to scuff the armor. Even the white shadow of poison's poisonous rays and poisonous claws only left a few marks that weren't too deep. They failed to penetrate the armor. This is good stuff. Zhou Wen thought that, with such good armor, he might be able to withstand the black dragon's attack, but once he entered the underground sea, the stone armor and the blood-colored avatar were swallowed whole. It didn't mean anything to the black dragon. The only thing was that it was a little hard to chew. It wasn't of much use to deal with those terrifying true dragons, but the armor was an excellent grade defensive object at the epic stage. Zhou Wen liked it a lot. When the mutated stone kai fought alone in battle, it was rather powerful. It had the strength similar to the mutated stone kai which Zhou Wen had killed. It was an excellent grade pet that was good both in the offensive and defensive. After hatching the mutated stone Kai, Zhou took out the mutated sword fang companion egg and hatched it using the same method. Mutated sword fang fish, epic. Life providence, fish of sword comprehension. Life soul, sword flash fish. Strength, 39. Speed, 37. Constitution, 38. Primordial energy, 35. Talent skill, fang wheel sword flash. Companion form, sword. Although it only had one skill, the mutated sword fangfish's stats were excellent. It was all-rounded, with none of its stats lower than 35. It could be considered a pretty good excellent grade epic companion beast. The only regret was that the mutated sword fangfish was an aquatic-type creature. It could only move freely in the water, so its mobility on land suffered greatly. It was basically useless. However, that didn't matter. Usually, Zhou could just use it as a sword in a place without water. The sword formed by the sword fangfish, along with its sword flashes, was much more convenient than the Overlord spear. It was even mightier, it just lacked the ever-victorious trait. He brought the mutated sword fangfish to the underground sea and wanted to use its speed to snatch the dragon pearl, but it was still swallowed by the black dragon. It failed to put up any resistance. From the looks of it, I can't just rely on pets. I still have to increase my strength as soon as possible. Zhou gritted his teeth and continued grinding the poison worm, hoping to have the dragon transformation art drop. When it was time to meet Li Xuan, Zhou applied for leave and attended the auction with Li Xuan. Zhou was rather familiar with the Ziyuan crystal shop, but when he got there with Li Xuan today, there were more people here than the previous few times. The people were mostly middle-aged. There were young people, but not many. Apart from Li Xuan, Zhou didn't see any familiar faces. Wang Lu didn't seem to be there either. "Brother, aren't you going to introduce me to your friend?" Just as the duo arrived at the venue, they saw a young man walk over. Although Zhou didn't recognize the young man, he could guess that he was Li Xuan's second brother, the man who had tried to kill him several times. Article 307 of 1597. When one wore clothing in the form of a Western suit and white shirt, it made them feel formal. However, the young man wearing such attire in front of them looked natural and desultory, as if wearing those clothes was nothing but natural. He exuded a unique, indescribable charm. Zhou sized him up. He was a man in his 20s, with looks that made one jealous. His every move was filled with charm, enough to move any woman's heart. Seeing that Li Xuan was merely looking at him coldly without any intention of introducing him, the man smiled and offered Zhou his hand. "Hello, my name is Li Zubai. My close friends call me Mobai. Since you are my brother's friend, call me Mobai as well." Zhou Li Xuan's friend. Zhou extended his hand and shook it before answering tersely. Those few words directly told Li Zubai that he was on the same side as Li Xuan, and there was no way he would be friends with him. Li Zubai didn't mind. He smiled and said, "Brother's friend is naturally my friend. If we have a chance to get to know each other in the future, you'll start to understand me. Don't rush to conclusions. I have friends over there, so pardon me." Seeing Li Zubai leave, Li Xuan pursed his lips and said, "He always looks like a gentleman when he's in front of others, but he uses all possible means behind their backs." Zhou glanced at Li Zubai and felt that Li Xuan's second brother was rather terrifying. He had plotted to kill Li Xuan, but he was still able to show his good brother image in front of others without his expressions betraying him. If it wasn't because Zhou knew the situation well, he would probably have believed that Li Xuan had a good relationship with his brother. "Li Zubai is really scary. It's no wonder you can't beat him," Zhou said to Li Xuan. "What do you mean I can't beat him? I just didn't want to compete with him in the past, but things are different now. He can forget about taking advantage of me in the future," Li Xuan said with a pout. Zhou shook his head slightly. Li Xuan's words had already exposed his weakness. Despite how Li Zubai had treated him, all Li Xuan wanted was to prevent his brother from taking advantage of him. Such a harmless personality might be Li Xuan's weakness, but it was precisely because of this personality that Zhou was willing to get close to him and become friends. There were many companion eggs placed in the glass cabinets on display in the exhibition hall. They were all to be auctioned, so anyone could take a careful look at them to better inform their decision on the bidding in the evening. However, it was difficult to tell if companion eggs were good or bad. Furthermore, with the tempered glass shield in the way, it blocked the aura of the companion eggs, making it even harder to make informed decisions. "Have you shortlisted your targets?" Zhou asked Li Xuan. "Yes, I'd like to bid for number 47 Holy Sword Angel. What do you think of it?" Li Xuan brought Zhou to the glass cabinet with the number 47 and pointed at a companion egg inside. As Zhou used his phone to take a picture of the companion egg, he asked, "What are the characteristics of Holy Sword Angel?" Li Xuan described the details of Holy Sword Angel to Zhou before asking, "How's 2 million? I plan on paying 2 million to buy this one during the auction. What do you think?" "I don't think this one is too good. You should consider something else," Zhou said after some thought. He saw that the Holy Sword Angel's attributes were only average. Although they weren't bad, they weren't considered good. Its skills were also incomplete, so it was far from an excellent grade companion beast. "Then which one do you think is good? I want the kind that looks good. Can you help me choose one from those?" Li Xuan pointed at the few companion eggs in the catalog. The few companion eggs in the catalog hatched angels, fairies, and demonesses. Furthermore, the prices were ridiculously high. Yet, their abilities were only average. It was unknown why Li Xuan was buying them. However, since Li Xuan wanted one, Zhou Wen decided to help him take a look. There were indeed a few which had relatively good attributes, especially an epic companion egg named Spirit Drawing Demonis. The 4 basic stats exceeded the limits listed on the catalog's range, and it had all 4 skills. It could be said to be an excellent grade companion egg. Zhou Wen secretly told Li Xuan that he should spend all his funds bidding for the Spirit Drawing Demonis. Li Xuan trusted Zhou Wen greatly. Since Zhou Wen told him to buy the Spirit Drawing Demonis, he didn't look at the other companion eggs. Zhou Wen, we agreed that you could pick one for yourself. It'll be your payment for your help, Li Xuan said to Zhou Wen. Cut that out. Since what needs to be done has been done, I'll look around. Go around by yourself and take a look. Zhou Wen wanted to go to the 4th level and look at the locked companion beast. He felt that it likely had something to do with the passcode that the former principal had given him. What's your problem? Just choose one. You can walk around after picking one. Li Xuan forcefully pulled Zhou Wen back. As he walked, he said, how's this nightmare succubus? Her figure is hot. Zhou Wen had no idea what Li Xuan was thinking. He remembered that the invincible Kannate divine art Li Xuan cultivated prevented him from losing his virginity. Losing his virginity would only make him lose his cultivation. What was the point looking at these all day? Wasn't he afraid of losing his cultivation? Since Li Xuan insisted on giving him one, Zhou Wen decided to choose a relatively cheaper one and be done with it. After flipping through the catalog, he realized that the cheapest cost at least 100,000. Furthermore, it was some boring legendary companion egg, for example, goblins or swamp monsters. These kinds of legendary companion eggs, that could only be considered ordinary in the West District, sold for more than 100,000, alluding to the saying that what is rare is dear. After all, the East District didn't have any of these companion beasts. He walked around and occasionally used his phone to take a look. As others were using phones to take photos, Zhou Wen's actions weren't too out of place. As Zhou Wen was looking, he suddenly froze. He looked at the display cabinet beside him. Inside it was a companion egg with the name Minotaur written on the card. However, the phone's information was different. Zhou Wen took a closer look at the information on the card. It wrote that it was a legendary Minotaur which dropped from a dimensional zone called the Underground Maze in West District. It was good at using axes, having pretty good constitution and strength. However, the information Zhou Wen saw on the phone was completely different from the card. This companion egg with the Minotaur label was listed as Tyrant Behemoth on the phone. Furthermore, it was only at the mortal stage. However, behind those words the phrase evolvable. That can't be. Could this be a mythical companion beast that's comparable to Banana Fairy? That shouldn't be possible. Those who are in the companion egg business are experts, especially at such a large auction. They must have been appraised by many experts. Why would they make a mistake between a Minotaur and a Tyrant Behemoth? Zhou Wen found it unbelievable, but the phone's information was clear. This was a Tyrant Behemoth companion egg. Article 308 of 1597. The procedures were strict, so how could there be any room for mistakes? Mythical companion eggs were just too rare. Would anyone mistake it for other companion eggs after obtaining it? Zhou Wen definitely wouldn't be mistaken. Regardless of the reason for the screw-up, there's no reason not to get something this good. Zhou Wen pointed at the companion egg with the Minotaur label and said to Li Xuan, I'll take this. Minotaur. I say, old Zhou, you sure are a little hardcore. There are so many companion eggs to choose from, but you have to choose something this ugly. Even if you want to save me money, that's not how you do it, right? Let's do it this way. I'll decide, and I'll get you that nightmare succubus tonight. I guarantee you that you won't regret it. Li Xuan looked at the introduction on the card as he said. No, I want this. If you aren't going to bid for it, I'll do it myself, Zhou Wen said. You're really odd. There are so many beautiful companion beasts, but you want none of that. Instead, you insist on something so ugly. Forget it, it's fine as long as you like it, Li Xuan said helplessly. After all, Zhou Wen had been a weirdo from the beginning. He wasn't too surprised. Zhou Wen, Li Xuan, you two sure came early. Wang Lu walked over and stood in front of them. Wang Lu, do you think Zhou Wen is odd? He doesn't want all these beautiful companion beasts and insists on having an ugly Minotaur, Li Xuan said with a smile. What Minotaur? Wang Lu asked. Li Xuan pointed at the display cabinet beside him. Wang Lu looked over and saw that the serial number was 107. She looked at Zhou Wen in surprise and asked, you wish to buy this companion egg? Yes. Zhou Wen's heart skipped a beat as he felt something amiss. What a coincidence. Wang Lu took out a note from her pocket and handed it to Zhou Wen. What's this? Li Xuan craned his head to look at the note with great curiosity. He saw the number, 107, written on it. Wang Lu said with a smile, I originally didn't want to come, but the organizer of this auction is a good friend of my family's elders, and I'm the only one in Luong, so I had to attend. I never thought of buying any companion beasts and couldn't be bothered perusing the catalog, so I randomly wrote a number. I planned on bidding for the companion beast with that number this evening as a way to please the auction organizer. Li Xuan found it rather coincidental when he heard that, but Zhou Wen was alarmed. Wang Le's luck was just too good. To be able to randomly select a mythical companion beast made her a humanoid mascot. Don't tell me the two of you plan on bidding for this minotaur? Li Xuan looked at the two of them and asked. Since the two of them had chosen the minotaur, they would only benefit the seller if they got into a bidding war. Since they were all fellow students with a good relationship, there was no need for that. Wang Lu looked at Zhou Wen and said, I don't plan on giving up. What about you? Same here, Zhou Wen said. I really don't understand you. There's no need to fight for a minotaur. There are plenty of them in the West District. If you really want one, I'll get someone to get you a few. There's no need to strain your friendship, Li Xuan tried to mediate. My decision never changes once I've made up my mind, but what Li Xuan said is right. There's no need to strain our friendship for a companion egg. How about this, I'll bid for this companion egg and you'll bid for another companion egg. After the auction is over, we can exchange them as a gift exchange. That way, I wouldn't have changed my mind, and you will obtain the companion egg you want. Isn't that fair? Wang Lu said after some thought. Fair enough. Zhou Wen nodded in agreement. He felt that if he really engaged in a bidding war with Wang Lu, there was almost no way he could beat her. Her suggestion would be for the best. Be it money or luck, Zhou Wen was no match for Wang Lu. I'm going to the organizer to say hello. I'll see you at the auction tonight. When an attendant came to invite Wang Lu over, she had no choice but to leave. Zhou Wen continued surveying the companion eggs in the exhibition hall. Although Wang Lu had willingly made the exchange, Zhou Wen still felt a little uncomfortable. He couldn't give up on a mythical companion beast, but he should try his best to find a good companion beast for Wang Lu. In a private room on the top floor of Zhuon's shop, a middle-aged man knocked on the door carefully. When the door opened a sliver, he immediately entered the room. In the private room, an old man sat on the sofa, smoking as he asked, Have you done what I told you to do? Sir, it's done. I've already switched the companion egg. As long as you bid for the companion egg at the auction, you can take it away without anyone noticing. The Zhang family definitely won't be able to notice it in such a short amount of time, said the middle-aged man nervously. Well done. What's the serial number of the companion egg? The old man put down the cigarette as his eyes shone with a fiery light. Sir, you promised me that as long as I settle this matter, you'll let me regain my freedom and send me back to the sea, my home, the middle-aged man said to the old man, his tone slightly anxious. I'll naturally do what I promised you, the old man said with a frown. I've worked for the Zhang family for so many years and finally managed to achieve my current position today. If what I did was discovered by them, there's no way I can survive. It's all because of your order, so you must keep your promise. Please send me home. The middle-aged man's eyes were bloodshot, his hands clenched tightly. I said that I will definitely fulfill my promise. Don't worry, what's the serial number of the companion egg? The old man stared coldly at him and asked again. 107. 107. That companion egg greatly resembles a minotaur companion egg. I did something to the companion egg, so even expert appraisers wouldn't notice any problems ahead of time. Besides, no one will pay attention to a minotaur companion egg. As soon as the middle-aged man finished speaking, a shadow that looked like a devil appeared behind the old man. The shadow spewed out smoke at the middle-aged man, engulfing him before he could react. Very soon, the smoke swirled back. When it landed on the old man's fingers, it had transformed into a cigarette. The old man struck a match and lit the cigarette. He sucked it deeply before exhaling a mouthful of smoke. He said calmly, Don't worry, I'll scatter your cigarette ashes into the sea. It can be considered as returning home. Zhou Wen walked around the exhibition hall for quite a while, but he couldn't find a satisfactory companion beast. They were either too expensive or too inferior. He couldn't afford the expensive ones, and he felt a little guilty buying the inferior ones. He was almost done checking out all the companion eggs except for one. Zhou Wen took one final snap. However, he couldn't help but be taken aback when he saw the results. Article 309 of 1597. Four-leaf clover, legendary. Life Providence, lucky grass. Strength, 0. Speed, 0. Constitution, 3. Primordial energy, 20. Talent skill, exorcism. Companion form, hair clip. This was the information that Zhou Wen saw, and the name on the card was a three-leaf clover. It was said to be a plant-type companion pet that could soothe one's mind. However, according to the information Zhou Wen saw on his phone, it was a four-leaf clover. Its attributes were extremely weak, virtually trash among those at the legendary stage, and exorcism was a common skill in the West District. Furthermore, it was a passive skill, so it wasn't of much use. The four-leaf clover looked ordinary, with nothing noteworthy. However, its lucky grass life providence astonished Zhou Wen. Lucky grass life providence, luck plus 3. It was a simple and direct introduction. Zhou Wen had seen this back when Wang Le's lucky baby tiger hadn't hatched. However, the lucky baby tiger added 5 luck, 2 points higher than lucky grass. This was understandable. After all, the baby tiger was at the epic stage while this four-leaf clover was only at the legendary stage. Wang Le's luck is amazing. This is the one. Zhou Wen decided to bid for the four-leaf clover companion egg. Having a luck stat was just too rare. Many people wanted it, and Zhou Wen was no exception. However, recognizing it as Wang Le's luck, he believed Wang Lu deserved getting the four-leaf clover since he was getting a tyrant behemoth. He couldn't have his cake and eat it. Furthermore, Zhou Wen felt that wearing a hair clip didn't suit him. There were many people who knew Li Xuan, so Li Xuan had to entertain them. Zhou Wen didn't like such socializing events, so he went to the fourth level to see the locked companion beast. However, Zhou Wen soon discovered that other than the independent elevator he had taken before, there weren't any other ways to take him to basement 4. And the elevator he had taken previously was closed, with no way to open it. Zhou Wen was puzzled. With so many tycoons from Luong and the surrounding cities here, as well as wealthy foreigners especially coming to participate in the auction, shouldn't the shop open up basement 4 and sell the pets inside? Instead, it had been sealed. Qin Zhuon's actions puzzled him. After he made an inquiry, an attendant told him that basement 4 required the boss to escort someone down. Even they couldn't take Zhou Wen down there. Zhou Wen had no choice but to give up the thought. After he visited the other floors of the store, he realized that the Zhuan crystal shop was indeed a well-established shop in Luong. It had plenty of crystals and companion eggs. It had also launched several new products, testimony that the Zhuan crystal shop had a very broad supply chain. When the auction was about to begin, Li Xuan took Zhou Wen to a private room on the second floor. Wang Lu was already waiting inside. It's all thanks to Wang Lu this time. Otherwise, young people like us wouldn't be able to touch a private room at all. Li Xuan grinned and sat on the sofa. Wang Lu smiled and said, "This room isn't prepared for me either. It's only because they are taking my family's elders into account. I'm just a representative." The three of them chatted for a while before the auction began. The first auction was for legendary companion eggs. They were considered desserts before the main courses. The final epic stage companion eggs were the main course. Legendary companion beasts were sold with a starting bid of 100,000. Their quality was much lower than the batch Zhou Wen obtained last time. However, those who could participate in the auction didn't care about the chump change. All they did was buy something they liked. Every item had a bid, but most of them weren't high. The highest closed at 230,000. Only then did Zhou Wen realize that serial numbers were sold in reverse order. The larger the number, the earlier they were auctioned. The 13th item was the Minotaur numbered 107, and it also had a starting bid of 100,000. Wang Lu very calmly pressed the button to raise the bid to 110,000. The room was sealed and isolated, equipped with one-way mirrors, so it was unlike the people in the hall below. They needed to use a bidding device instead of raising their hands, otherwise the auctioneer wouldn't be aware of bids from the private rooms. There were 2 people interested in the Minotaur. Soon, the bid raised to 160,000. Then, Wang Lu raised it to 170,000. The 2 bidders on the first floor had already given up. Wang Lu originally thought that she could be the winning bidder, but someone else suddenly increased the bid to 200,000. 200,000 for a Minotaur was an astronomical price. It appeared that the other party was determined to win the Minotaur. Looks like someone wants to compete with you. You don't have any enemies in Luong, right? Li Xuan said with a smile. Wang Lu shook her head and raised the price to 210,000. Isn't it tiring adding 10,000 each time? Just raise it to 300,000 and see if he wants to carry on bidding, Li Xuan said like the rich man he was. Money still needs to be conserved. Every bit counts, Wang Lu said with a smile. At that moment in another room, an old man who was smoking frowned. He originally believed that it wouldn't be a problem winning the companion egg with 200,000, he never expected someone to engage in a bidding war with him. Could it be that the news was leaked? Or did that guy leave a backup plan? The old man pondered for a moment. He felt that both cases were possible, but it didn't seem like it. Unable to figure out the reason instantaneously and seeing how no one was bidding, with the auctioneer already calling 210,000 once, the old man decided to bid. The money spent was trivial as long as he could get it. He didn't wish to attract too much attention, so he planned to add 10,000 to test the other party's reaction. However, when his finger pressed on the bidding device, there was no reaction. It seemed to have broken. The old man was stunned. He quickly reached out his fingers and pressed it several times, but there was no reaction at all. It was as if it had really broken. Sweat seeped out from his forehead and he pressed continuously, but there was no reaction. Calling thrice. 210,000, sold. The Minotaur was sold for 210,000. The auctioneer was satisfied with the number and had called out very quickly. The old man in the room fumed with anger. He had considered everything, making all the necessary arrangements, only to fail because of a damaged bidding device. He could not help but be enraged. He called the staff over and launched a tirade. However, when the staff checked the bidding device, they found that all the buttons were working normally. There were no problems at all during the subsequent attempts. "Sir, were you too excited just now? Could it be a mishandling of the controls?" The staff member asked in an extremely polite manner. The old man hated that he couldn't immediately turn the staff in front of him into smoke, but this was Luong. If he did that, he would definitely be targeted, and this wouldn't solve any problems. Who won 107? The old man could only suppress his anger and ask. Sir, I'm sorry. Unless the client is willing to make it public, we need to keep our client's information confidential, the staff member said as he bowed slightly. The old man held back his anger and let the staff leave. His expression darkened. He did not know if it was a coincidence or if he had already been targeted. If someone had targeted him, he would be in danger. Article 310 of 1597. Zhou Wen couldn't help but heave a sigh of relief when he saw that Wang Lu had succeeded in bidding for the tyrant behemoth. This kind of companion beast that had a chance to advance to the mythical stage was just too precious. There was nowhere in game he could grind for them like ordinary pets which he would eventually obtain given time. To have something fall into his lap just like this, he doubted that there would be a second opportunity. Moments later, a staff member sent the item over. After letting Wang Lu confirm that the item was right, Wang Lu directly paid the bill with her card and obtained the tyrant behemoth companion egg. Wang Lu turned to face Zhou Wen with the companion egg in hand. He extended his hand to receive it, only to have Wang Lu retract her hand and hug the companion egg. She smiled at Zhou Wen and asked, since it's a trade, where's your companion egg? The companion egg I chose hasn't begun the auction, Zhou Wen said. Then I'll trade with you when you get it. Wang Lu hugged the companion egg and sat back on the sofa. Zhou Wen wasn't in a rush as he waited for the auction to continue. After a few more auction items, he finally saw the 4-leaf clover being auctioned. There weren't many people bidding for the 4-leaf clover since the card's information stated that it was a 3-leaf clover without any combat strength. It was basically a supplementary item that made one clear-headed. The effects were not much different from medication oil, so few people had any interest in it. Only one person started it off with the opening bid, allowing Zhou Wen to buy it for 130,000. Let's swap the goods at the same time. Wang Lu held the companion egg with one hand and extended her other hand in front of Zhou Wen. All right. Zhou Wen placed the 4-leaf clover companion egg in Wang Le's hand before taking the tyrant behemoth companion egg. I finally got it. Holding the tyrant behemoth companion egg, Zhou Wen felt extremely excited. This pet had the chance of advancing to the mythical stage in the future. Behemoths were a type of dimensional creature that was terrifying in Western mythology. Legend had it that it ate mountains on a daily basis, and due to its huge appetite, God, who had originally created a pair of behemoths, was afraid that their descendants would end up devouring the entire world. Hence, he killed the female behemoth, leaving behind only the male behemoth. It was ultimately a legend, but the attributes of Tyrant Behemoth made it clear that it was extraordinary. Tyrant Behemoth, mortal, evolvable. Strength, 11. Speed, 11. Constitution, 11. Primordial energy, 11. Talent skill, mountain devouring. Companion form, boxing glove. It was a classic 4-11-pointer all-rounder. Like Banana Fairy, it only had one single skill. This disappointed Zhou Wen a little. The companion form was a boxing glove, something that he would figure out after hatching it. The auction continued. In the end, Li Xuan managed to win the epic spirit drawing Demonis for 3,200,000. It was much more expensive than the market price, making him feel the pinch. However, he still insisted on winning it. Once the auction ended, he rushed back impatiently, planning to think of a way to incubate spirit drawing Demonis. I know there's a dessert shop nearby that has pretty good desserts. Want to try it before we head back to school? Wang Lu asked Zhou Wen after leaving Xuan. I'll pass. I don't really eat sweet stuff. Zhou Wen was speaking the truth. Besides, he was in a rush to hatch the tyrant behemoth, so he wasn't in the mood to eat. Waving his hand as a farewell, Zhou Wen summoned his mutated lotus flower ant and rode it back to school. He's really not gentlemanly at all. What a dimwit. Drive, Wang Lu said angrily and ordered her driver to drive her to the dessert shop. After the car left, an old man walked out of a nearby alley. He looked in the direction of the car with a complicated gaze. Someone from the Wang family won that companion egg. It looks like something happened. That guy probably leaked the news. The old man felt that he was in a very dangerous situation. He had to leave immediately. Otherwise, it was possible that the Wang family would silence him. After all, it was the Zhang family's mythical companion egg, and the Hero King's family was not to be trifled with. In order to not provoke the Zhang family, the Wang family might have very well eliminated all those who knew about this. Damn the Wang family. Count it my loss this time. The old man didn't dare to stay any longer. He sneaked into the darkness and left. Highly nervous, he constantly observed his surroundings to prevent anyone from the Wang family from pursuing him. After Zhou Wen returned to his dorm, he hatched the tyrant behemoth. After all, it was still at the mortal stage. With the amount of primordial energy Zhou Wen currently had, it was rather easy to hatch it. Before long, a tattoo that looked like a bull's head appeared on the back of Zhou Wen's hand. It was completely black, resembling the silhouette of a bull's head. He summoned Tyrant Behemoth. He originally imagined that it would be massive like its namesake. After all, the behemoth was the largest mythical creature, a terrifying existence that fed on mountains daily. But the tyrant in front of him was only half the height of a human. It had a bull's head and a thick curved horn on it. Its body resembled an ape and its claws were sharp. The tail on its back curled up and its fur was black and luscious like black silk. It did look like a minotaur, a miniature one. When Tyrant Behemoth turned into a boxing glove, a black boxing glove immediately appeared on Zhou Wen's right hand. Strangely, there were two horns at the front of the glove. If Zhou Wen wanted to punch someone, the horns would definitely be the first to make contact. This fellow is still at the mortal stage. No matter how strong he is, he can't be that strong. I wonder how long it will take to evolve to the level of Banana Fairy, Zhou Wen thought. Zhou Wen soon discovered that Tyrant Behemoth did indeed live up the legends about it eating mountains. Banana Fairy and Truth Listener, together with the other companion beasts that needed to be fed, didn't eat as much combined. Not long after he fed it, the phone would notify him that Tyrant Behemoth was in a hungry state. Furthermore, it wasn't picky. Be it companion eggs or companion beasts, it could swallow them whole. Thankfully, Zhou Wen now had the epic poison bats that he could kill in mass numbers. After getting a few epic poison bat companion eggs for it, the system's notification silenced. It can eat so much at such a young age. If it really evolves to the epic stage, will I be able to raise it? Zhou Wen was already beginning to worry. Apart from the time he spent studying at Wang Mingyuon's place, Zhou Wen kept grinding daily. What he wanted the most was Lucky Baby Tiger and the Poison Worm's dragon transformation art, followed by that Dragon Pearl. Zhou Wen, come to my office. Wang Fei sent him a text. Zhou Wen thought that the Wang Fei had finally convinced her family to allow him to learn the Wang family's movement techniques, but to his surprise, he learned that the school wanted him to be a student mentor. It had been arranged that he would take care of a student from Bright Prospects College. Zhou Wen would be responsible for his learning and day-to-day living for the next 3 months at Sunset College. Isn't this the responsibility of a tutor? Zhou Wen asked in puzzlement. Don't forget that you're a student at Sunset College. To the students of the other colleges, you have the right to be their mentor. That's why you are called a student mentor. Do a good job and don't disgrace our Sunset College, Wang Fei said to Zhou Wen with a solemn expression. Zhou Wen wanted to decline, but Wang Fei told him that this was the school management's decision. He couldn't decline it unless he dropped out of school. Article 311 of 1597.